Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, September 29th, 2020. My name is Justin Coffin, and this is the 330 Sports Show. We are broadcasting live from downtown Youngstown, Ohio, and we are produced by Joe Danier's Youngstown Studio Network. Before I bring my guest on in a minute, let's have a word from our sponsor, Coca's Pizza.
Attention all football fans. If you can't see your team play, come and dine with us and watch it live at Boardman, Canfield, or Cortland. Or staying at home, we'll deliver right to your door. That's Coca's Pizza. We serve it hot.
All right. Thank you again to Steve Coca for all his support. My guest today, you're going to recognize him. He's another familiar face, very an expert in his field, and we have a lot of great questions to ask him and get into some sports topics as well with him. So I'd like to welcome on Mr. Eric Wilhelm from WFMJ.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good afternoon.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Eric.
Sure.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Obviously people in Youngstown know you, but maybe people listening out of town might not. So could you tell us about what how you got to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been here now for, it'll be 8 years in a few weeks.
Okay.
It'll be my 8-year anniversary at WFMJ. Prior to coming here, I'm originally from New Philadelphia, Ohio, which is about 90 miles southwest of here, kind of south of Akron on I-77. I went to college at Ohio State. To become a meteorologist in the state of Ohio. If you want to go to college in Ohio, it's pretty much Ohio State or Ohio University down in Athens. I was always a Buckeyes fan, so I went to Ohio State.
Nice.
And got my degree in 2001. And then I spent kind of the formative years of my career, the first 11 years basically, at a company called AccuWeather. And I was not on camera much there. Actually, what I did mostly at AccuWeather was kind of behind the scenes and in a radio booth, and I could wear jeans to work and didn't have to get dressed up. That was kind of nice. But it actually wasn't much on-camera TV work. Okay. And so technically, even though I'm the chief meteorologist here at WFMJ, this is technically my first full-time TV job. It's kind of an unusual career path for a meteorologist.
All right, very cool. But obviously now you're in front of the camera all the time. We see you on your Facebook spots and you give us all these this great information, whether it be winter, summer, spring, fall. So I have to ask personally, as someone that's just really intrigued by the weather, I got to think like let's just hypothetically say you're at the grocery store or wherever you are around town. How many times a week does someone random come up to you and ask you or talk to you about the weather?
Probably not as often as you would think.
Really? Okay.
People are used to seeing me kind of in my uniform.
Okay.
And so at the grocery store, if I'm wearing shorts and flip-flops, and if I'm not speaking, they don't hear my voice.
Sure.
Then I kind of look like an average guy.
Okay.
And so I'm maybe a little bit harder to recognize out in public compared to some others.
Okay.
Who maybe have a little more of a distinctive look.
All right.
I just kind of look like an average guy. And so it doesn't happen as often as you think, but every now and then, it'll happen and people want to chat. And I love that. I love interacting with the public, and even if it's a Saturday afternoon and I'm technically off the clock.
Oh yeah.
I like talking about weather anytime.
Never off the clock with weather.
That's true.
Okay. So I feel like weather professionals are sort of treated like head coaches in ways at times where you put together a forecast or a game plan. A lot of times you get it right. Sometimes it might be wrong. And those people maybe not in public, but maybe on Twitter or Facebook. Do you ever get any of the criticism for something that's kind of not in your control?
Absolutely. I like to think of it also as being like a referee in any sport, where a success means that they didn't really notice, but if you fail, people are not only going to notice, they're going to tell you about it. And so especially around here, of course, in the winter, the stakes are much higher when it comes to winter weather. And if a forecast does go sideways, either we get more snow than anticipated or less snow than anticipated.
Sure.
I will hear about it. I like to say that my Facebook fans are great. 98% of them. It's the vocal 2% of them that you remember that you might have to might have to mute.
Right.
I've had to swing the band hammer a few times. If people, people will get personal. And that sort of thing. You have to have a little bit of thick skin, and thankfully I've been doing this long enough now that I've developed a pretty thick skin.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. It is usually that loudest 2% that makes, the most trouble. Okay. So talking about creating a forecast, could you walk us through, and I know with the weather, no 2 days are exactly alike, but could you walk us through like a typical day in your life?
Sure. I work in the evenings, and so my time at the station is typically 2 p.m. to 11:30 p.m.
Okay.
But I will get up in the mornings and usually at least glance at the weather, if not spend 20 minutes looking at the weather first thing in the morning, just to make sure that the overnight weather worked out as planned.
Right.
Kind of get the latest on what today might bring. What if we have some big ticket weather item coming 3 days from now, I want to check in and see how that's looking.
Sure.
And then when I get to work in the afternoon, a typical day, and you're so right, no 2 days are alike, which is one of the great things about my job, is that no 2 days really are alike, especially around here.
Yeah.
When I get in, I assess what's going on right now and focus on the near term. And then I start diving into a whole host of computer models. We have access. One of the great things about being a meteorologist these days is the amount of information. Sometimes it can be too much.
Yeah.
But there is a ton of information at our disposal. And so I will dig into the first handful of days in pretty good detail. Our TV and social media forecasts tend to go out 7 days.
Okay.
But if there's something interesting happening beyond that, I want to know about that too. I'll start looking at that. And so then I got to take off my forecaster hat once I've made the forecast and put on kind of my graphics artist hat.
Okay.
And assemble a sequence of weather graphics that will make sense on television. I've got to keep in mind what will work on social media and what may be better for TV. Some graphics are a little too busy for TV, and they work a little better on social media. So once I've taken off my kind of graphics artist hat and I have an idea as to what my rundown is going to be, that 9 graphics out of 500 that I have to choose from to tell the day's story. Once I do that, then I have to do some kind of busy work type of stuff, posting a weather story on the internet on our webpage. Of course, keeping social media active. We send out text alerts for weather and routine text forecasts for subscribers of that service. So I take care of that.
I was going to say, I usually get that about 10 minutes after I think the broadcast is over, roughly.
Yep. And that brings us just about up to the 6 o'clock news.
Okay.
And after that point, after a break for dinner, I usually record a video I call Weather for Weather Geeks that I know you're familiar with. It's it's my outlet to get kind of nerdy and not be restricted by time. Yeah. Because on TV, I got to do it all in 2.5 minutes.
Right.
It's not a lot of time.
No.
And most of the time I have a lot more to say than I can say in 2.5 minutes. So that's kind of my outlet to really dive in and not only provide more detail, but also provide some of the science-y stuff that doesn't work as well sometimes on TV to a mass audience. This is a little more of a niche audience that tends to be a little more scientifically inclined and kind of are geeks. And so I've been doing that video now for 7+ years, and I've been really surprised and pleasantly surprised over the years how big of an audience I can get for that video. There's a lot of nerds out there. And there's a lot of people out there who maybe they work a construction job or they're a roofer, and the forecast that they might get on an app or on TV might just not be detailed enough for their needs. They need to know exactly when it's going to rain tomorrow. Can I lay concrete or not? And so that video hopefully helps people like that out too.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So and I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to word this the correct way, and you can help me if I'm wrong. But so let's just hypothetically say there's a 60% chance of rain. Now, our area is pretty large. When you go all the way down to East Liverpool area and all the way up past Cortland, you're extending 60 plus miles. So when you say a 60% chance, does that mean at the airport? Does that mean the viewing area? Can you explain that a little bit more?
The chances of precipitation is one of the hot button topics in the weather enterprise. There's a lot of TV meteorologists who will not use those percentages.
Sure.
I choose to use them because I think it complements the little icon you see on the weather graphics, I think it complements it nicely. Because if you just saw the icons and you saw those little raindrops coming out of the clouds, would you know, what does that mean? It's going to rain all day or what? So the percentages, while not perfect, from a communication standpoint, can help communicate the flavor of the forecast that day. From a technical standpoint, a 60% chance of rain means there's a 60% chance that rain will occur at some point during the day.
Okay.
It doesn't mean 60% of the area will see rain. It doesn't mean it's going to rain 60% of the time. It just means at some point, even if it's just for a minute, it's going to rain at some point. Now, our forecasts verify at the Youngstown Warren Airport in Vienna. And so that's where we look for the official observations to see if our forecast worked out. But we have a decent sized viewing area. So if it doesn't rain at the airport, but it does in Lisbon, then, you know, that forecast was okay if you were predicting rain somewhere.
Okay. So. Very interesting. All right. So going off of that, and your forecast and things like that, we hear about these different models, American model, European model, things like that. Do you have one that you favor? Do you have one, or could you tell us about those more, maybe a little bit more in depth?
So one of the ways that we help, or that we, part of the process of creating a forecast is looking at various models. And the way these models work is a lot of the data that goes into these models that's fed into them are from weather balloons. Weather balloons are sent up twice a day from National Weather Service offices all around the country. And as they go up, they measure temperature and wind and humidity and all of that before they pop at 30,000 feet above our heads.
Interesting. Okay.
And so all of that data, in addition to a lot of other data, gets fed into these models that are extremely complex. It's just a bunch of math. And they're able to then take that data, compute a solution, if you will, going forward in time, 6 hours, 12 hours. Some models now go out a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And so we have a whole host of these. Some are better than others. Some have known biases, known strong points, known weak spots. In general, if you see me on TV talking about computer models or online or something like that, I'm going to be talking about the European model a lot. The GFS is kind of the United States version of the European model. It's kind of a medium range model that we have data out through like 10 days. And then there are shorter range models. Some only go out 12 hours in the future, 18 hours. And in general, when we're talking about especially the medium and longer range, days 5 through 10, the European model has always been more accurate than the American version of that. Okay. Not every single time, but on average. And a large reason for that is the European Center has in the past tended to devote a lot more resources towards their modeling. And so they just dump a lot more money and research into their modeling capabilities. Now the Americans are starting to catch up some. We're seeing a kind of a shorter gap, if you will, between our modeling prowess and the Europeans. But in an average year, the European model is going to be more accurate than the American GFS when we're talking about the medium range. Okay. In the short range, we have some models that are really good at predicting pop-up random thunderstorms in the summer where there's just no telling if it's going to rain here and not there. And, and some models, we have short-term models that are getting pretty good at that, but they're never going to be perfect. No model is ever going to be perfect, which is why we're always going to have a job. Right. It's our job to interpret this data and learn from mistakes and know that, oh, that model tends to be too wet in these situations or things like that. That's where the job of the experienced meteorologist comes in. All
right. Very good. Very good. Okay. So taking a forecast for you, is it, and this, you can answer this in your own way, but the way I had it worded, is it harder to predict a thunderstorm or a winter storm?
The location of a thunderstorm is very difficult to predict. Okay. Unless we have a cold front that is going to come through, there's going to be a line of thunderstorms all along the length of the front. That's not so bad. And that actually happened back in the spring. Every county but one in Ohio was under a severe thunderstorm warning one day because a cold front rolled across the state with a big mass of thunderstorms. Everybody got a thunderstorm. Okay. But that's an exception. A lot of summer days, these things just pop up and there's just no telling where they're going to pop up and how high in the sky they're going to get. Sometimes we'll have a day in which we don't expect severe weather and a couple of storms get up on their feet and all of a sudden you have some hail. And that's almost impossible to predict more than a couple of hours ahead of time. Okay. A winter storm we typically see coming days ahead of time. It's just a matter of nailing down the details on how much snow, will there be mixed precipitation involved? If so, then does that reduce snow amounts? And there's a lot of details you have to work out, but the presence of a winter storm we usually know that at least a few days, if not a week at a time.
Okay. All right. And now they've always named the hurricanes or cyclones or whatever it might be, but now they're naming the winter storms. Where do those names come from?
That is strictly a Weather Channel philosophy.
Okay.
They started doing this, I believe, 6 years ago. And it's been a hot button issue in the weather enterprise.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of people who believe that they're doing that simply to, drive ratings, drive clicks on their website, drive social media shares. The argument for naming winter storms is it makes them more easy to reference when you look back at them in the future. If there's a big winter storm this winter, if it has a name, then 3 years from now, if you're doing research on that or referencing it in some way, if it has a name, it's just easy to remember which one you're talking about.
Right.
And also because we live in a social media age, having a hashtag with a name does make it a little easier to share information.
Okay.
If you want to share public safety information about that winter storm, hashtagging a name is better than just hashtagging like snowstorm or something like that. But yeah, hurricanes have gotten names, and that's a National Weather Service, a government, if you will, priority. But the naming of winter storms is a private sector Weather Channel only thing at this point.
All right. Very interesting. So going back to being live in the studio, and you mentioned about some graphics work on TV, some work better on your Facebook page. Now, getting up in front of a green screen, how long did it take you to master something like that, especially since you were in the AccuWeather radio?
Not long. The green screen, the mechanics of pointing is what kind of throws you off the most. The mechanics of, I need to point at Youngstown and not Austintown when I do a gesture.
Sure.
I can't be searching for it. Oh, right here. That takes a little bit of time. We're aided by a couple of monitors on each side of that green screen. There's also a monitor under the camera that I can sneak a peek at to kind of get my bearings. Yeah. But I need to be able to turn my body and gesture confidently at a location to point something out. And as most people know, the magic of TV weather on that green screen, I don't see the graphics behind me. I'm standing in front of a blank green wall. But through the magic of TV, you don't see that green wall. You see the pretty graphics. The ad-libbing on live TV in front of a green screen or anywhere else, I was aided a lot by the time I got here by my AccuWeather radio experience. Sure. Just being able to get on and just talk about the weather without any script or anything like that. And so I was pretty ready to do that when I got here. But that's another thing that, to a fresh graduate, someone brand new to the business, that takes a little time too. Absolutely. To just be able to, when the red light comes on, just talk. Okay. And you can't stammer, you can't go you got to just talk without hesitation. And if there's one subject in the world I can do that about,
it's the weather, no doubt. All right. So as a weather professional, and I've always wondered this about certain meteorologists and just, maybe TV personalities, do you get excited about like an upcoming big storm or winter storm, whether it might be a severe thunderstorm warning or a winter storm?
When it comes to winter weather, as I get older, I'm less enthused about dealing with it. I don't want to shovel it. I don't want to drive in it. But I'm also a competitive person. And so I get excited and the adrenaline gets going from a competitive standpoint. I want to get the forecast right. I want to get it more right than anybody else. I also want to help people out. I want to be the person that people turn to when they're trying to know if they are going to need daycare for the kids because they're going to be off school or something like that. Sure. Or they're going to be able to get to work without flying off the road. I want to help people out, but I'm also, competitive. When it comes to severe weather, that tends to be much more of a short-term, fly by the seat of your pants kind of a thing where you're going to be really busy maybe for a couple of hours and then it's over. Okay. But during that couple of hours, you could be potentially saving someone's life in the worst case scenarios. If we have a big windstorm or, a tornado, which is not unheard of around here, the information you're communicating could potentially save someone's life, and that's a responsibility that we have to take pretty seriously.
Absolutely. So, okay, so with that, looking ahead to this fall and this winter, I know it's very early. We're not even in October yet, but do you have any long-term predictions for this fall or this winter?
Well, I'll start by saying that our official winter forecast, as always, will be out around Halloween. Okay. It's somewhere around the last week of October, first week of November. And that's where you'll see me on TV kind of presenting this graphically. I'll do a much longer version of the forecast on Facebook and on my YouTube channel and things like that. That being said, at this early stage of the game, I don't see a whole lot of data at all to suggest that this winter is going to be a return to like traditional cold and snow. We had a real dud last year. We only had 44 inches of snow at the airport last winter.
Wow.
Our average is like 60. And if you live like in Columbiana County, probably your backyard saw 20 something inches of snow all winter.
Wow.
It was a real dud of a winter. And I don't see much information to suggest that this winter will be a snap in the other direction. It may be somewhat colder and snowier than last winter, but that wouldn't be saying much.
Right.
Because last winter was kind of a non-winter. We have what we call La Nina going on this winter. That's where the water is abnormally cold in a certain part of the Pacific Ocean. And people may be wondering, what does that have to do with weather in Ohio? The water temperatures in certain parts of the Pacific Ocean can help drive weather patterns upstream into North America.
Okay.
And in a La Nina, often those winters tend to be a little less snowy, a little less cold in our region. And then some other factors are kind of playing into this idea that maybe this winter, if you're a snow lover, you may not be happy once again.
Okay. So, all right. Very interesting. Thank you. And you said around Halloween, your the official one will be out. Okay. So with the recent wildfires in California, and I believe there was a big dust storm. Was that in Africa that came this way, or?
We had an event a few months ago. Everything kind of blends together.
Yeah, right.
Especially in 2020.
Yeah.
Where a lot of African dust came off the continent and traveled all the way across the Atlantic into the Caribbean, into the U.S. It's not terribly uncommon. The only thing that was a little uncommon about this was the thickness of the dust.
Okay.
Wildfire dust often makes the trip across, but this time around it was pretty thick.
Okay. All right. So that's nothing too unusual. No. Okay. All right. All right. Just a few more weather questions that I have. And this one's more of a conspiracy theory question, I guess. Do you ever think possibly in the near future, or 50 years from now, that we'll have the technology that will be able to manipulate the weather?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I wouldn't rule it out 100%, but I doubt it. And if that ability were to come to fruition, it would be in very subtle ways. It wouldn't be like we could do something to steer a hurricane away from the U.S.
Sure.
It would be something much more subtle.
Okay.
Than that. Now, there are people, you mentioned conspiracy theories. There are people that believe that we're doing that already.
Right.
Which is not true at all. There are people that believe that when you see airplane contrails in the sky, that's the government poisoning us and things like that. We could go down a whole rabbit hole about conspiracy theories that I have heard of. Weather modification right now does not really exist in any sort of form.
Okay. All right. So with all that said, I gotta tell you a quick story, and then I just want to hear your thoughts on something to do with lightning. Now, my senior year of high school, so I'm 18 years old. In Boardman, there's a little lottery booth that used to be in front of Giant Eagle. It's where the Get-Go is now. I just would work there, 1 or 2 days a week in high school. There was a bad thunderstorm a certain night. The phone rings. I pick it up. As soon as I pick it up, boom, get knocked backwards. There was an explosion. Okay. So I am claiming I've been struck by lightning through the phone. I was taken to the hospital. I had an EKG test and all that, and I had accelerated heart rate. The coolest part of that story, though, the end of my socks singed black.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So I just wanted to know your thoughts on lightning, and do you have any interesting facts you could tell us on lightning? Because that's something I've always been sort of intrigued by, but now I'm like, get the hell in the house and get out of the way.
Lightning, you got to take it really seriously.
Right.
And it's something we preach a lot when we get out of winter and towards the spring and summer season, when people are starting to think about getting out on the lake and getting on their boats and going to the beach and that sort of thing. Lightning deaths, thankfully, are not astronomical, but enough of them happen every year that it definitely bears repeating how dangerous lightning can be. And we like to differentiate on TV between two different voltages with lightning.
Okay.
In other words, lightning can carry a negative voltage or a positive voltage. The ones that carry a positive voltage tend to strike the ground more often.
Okay.
They also tend to strike objects, lightning and antennas, lightning, things that attract lightning, things like trees. And they also carry a much higher voltage to the tune of like 1 billion volts.
Oh my.
In a positive voltage strike. Sometimes you might hear someone talk about a bolt from the blue. In other words, you might be 20 miles from a thunderstorm, but a lightning bolt hits somewhere nearby.
Wow.
And those tend to be those positive voltage strikes that come out of the top of the cloud and then travel way away from the storm, but still find their way to the ground. And that's why when a storm maybe 25 miles away, but coming your way and you're still on the lake, it's time to get off. Even though that storm may be a half an hour from striking your exact location, those lightning strikes can occur much farther ahead than the heart of the storm. So lightning safety is kind of a big deal. When I do school talks, hopefully next year, maybe I'll get back to doing school talks in better times. I talk to the kids a lot about lightning safety because it's one of those things that typically you're not going to be impacted by a flash flood in any given year. You're not going to be impacted by a lot of different weather hazards. We don't live near an ocean, so hurricanes aren't a big concern for us. We have tornadoes, but they're pretty rare around here. But lightning is something that occurs all the time in the summer. So we want to really preach that you got to take it seriously.
Yeah, especially those kids out on a little league field. They, they I believe they had that 15 or 30-minute warning. Get in. Be safe.
Absolutely.
All right, let's switch to a few different sports topics. I know you're a sports fan. So do you have a favorite sports show or movie?
Favorite sports movie? Anything dealing with Cleveland sports, I'm going to be partial to. So Major League is up there, of course. Major League 2, not so much. Like all sequels. It was kind of bad. But the original Major League is great. I'm a golf fan, so any golf movie I'm going to be a sucker for. Whether it be Happy Gilmore or Caddyshack or anything like that.
All right.
As far as sports shows go, I don't find myself watching a whole lot of sports TV anymore. Back in my previous life, when I worked mornings instead of evenings, I would watch a lot of the late afternoon stuff on ESPN, PTI, Around the Horn, stuff like that. I don't get a chance to do that much anymore. This is the podcast format. I love podcasts. So if I'm going to consume sports content these days, typically it's going to be in a podcast. I'm driving to work. So the Bill Simmons podcast and things like that. A lot of good stuff there. So,
very good. Very good. All right. So, and I asked this question to a lot of our guests. If you had a time machine and a ticket and you can pick one game to go to, do you have a game in mind?
As a Cleveland sports fan, there aren't a lot of happy memories that I
No, there are not.
There's a lot of really amazing games that didn't turn out great, like the 2016 World Series, Game 7. That would have been amazing.
Yes.
But it didn't turn out great. As an Ohio State Buckeye, I always regretted not going to the Trestle National Championship game in 2002 out in Arizona. I had a lot of friends who went, and I was very jealous. So I really wish I could have gone back and seen that. That would have been the first that was the first championship by any team that I like in my lifetime. And having it to watch on TV, and I was at work too. It was like 11 at night. I was working overnights. That was kind of a bummer. But I would like to have attended any number of Cleveland sporting events, even if they didn't turn out great.
Sure.
When I was a kid, the fumble, the drive, those really bad Cleveland memories. They were still amazing games that it would have been amazing to be at.
Yeah.
The 1997 World Series didn't end well, as you know. I was in college during that, and I distinctly remember watching the last couple of innings of that, and just
Nagy and Mesa. And,
it was not great, but would have been cool to have been there. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay. All right. Very good. Favorite athletes?
Well, for a long time, I was mad at LeBron, but when he came back and won a championship, all was forgiven. So LeBron probably tops my power list. As far as current athletes go, Frankie Lindor, of course. As far as current Cleveland athletes, he's got to be at the top of the heap. In the past, growing up, I was a big Bernie Kosar fan, big Mark Price fan of the Cavs. I always thought I was Mark Price on the playground. I was the short guy who could shoot threes. That was who I modeled myself after. And then you get into the 90s, and I loved Charlie Nagy with the Indians, even though he didn't do us many favors in Game 7. He wasn't all that well rested, if I remember correctly.
You're correct on that.
They emptied out the bullpen, and he came in, and that wasn't a great decision. So I was a big fan of him. Carlos Baerga in the 90s, loved him. Jim Thome. Albert Bell, when he hit a lot of home runs, loved him, but then,
he got a little crazy in his older days.
His older days weren't great, and he certainly had a personality that wasn't lovable, shall we say. But those 90s Indians teams, they were amazing. Going up there and to a sellout No matter if you were going to a game on a Wednesday in July or anything else, it was sold out. It was just electric back then. It was just amazing.
So great. So being an Ohio State graduate, we have the Buckeyes back now. What's your thoughts on the season this year?
I think there's going to be disappointment if they don't run the table. They've got to go to Penn State, but it's going to be an empty stadium. So a night game at Penn State without
loses its luster.
105,000 fans all wearing white and being the noisiest stadium in the Big Ten. They should win that game. And looking at the rest of the schedule, I don't see a loss there. I hate to be cocky about it, but you look at the schedule, especially if those hard road games are neutralized by the lack of fans.
Right.
I think having one loss would be a disappointment.
Yeah, and I think Ryan Day and Justin Field, I think they're on a mission this year. And you had mentioned, last question for you, you had mentioned you're a golfer or you enjoy golf. Do you have a favorite golf course in the area?
I love Kensington and Mill Creek, kind of in Mahoning County. I haven't gotten a chance to play many Columbiana County courses, which this year I had planned on trying a few, but it's been a weird year for many reasons, and golf has sort of gone by the wayside for me a little bit this year. But in Mahoning County, love Mill Creek, love Kensington. I love Avalon Lakes. I've done a lot of events in which WFMJ is a sponsor of many events, and fortunate to get paired up with some golfers who are better than me that I work with, like Derek Steyer and Caroline Collins. Caroline's amazing. A lot of great courses around here. Okay. It's just a shame that this year's been so weird that I haven't gotten to visit many of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can turn the page on that soon and we get a good, nice spring ahead of us. So I just want to thank you, first of all, for taking your time out of your day and coming down and visiting with us. And obviously you're always welcome back on the show. Before you go, remind the people listening or watching how they can get more information besides just watching you live on TV.
Sure, I'm all over social media. So Facebook, if you type in meteorologist before my name, you can find me pretty easily on Facebook. Twitter and Instagram, I'm Eric WFMJ. That's kind of my handle on both. Okay. I've got a YouTube channel that I post all my Weather Geeks videos and stuff on. The Storm Tracker 21 weather app, I think it's the best weather app you can find anywhere.
I agree.
And unlike a lot of weather apps that are really just 99% computer generated, our app has information in there that we are manually typing in, and it comes from people who are local and know the weather around here. So it's the best app you can get, I think, for our local area. So if you haven't downloaded the app, I highly encourage you to do so. And of course, traditionally, the website's a great place to go as well to find forecasts.
Very good. Yeah. Well, Eric, thank you again so much for coming down. I'm going to shift gears here and show you another little weather video to go along with this. It's a funny comedic version of a weather video, but thanks again for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I love that.
All right.
I love cute this morning. We are looking at a high today of -12 with light flurries, and then it will drop down to a low of -18 this evening.
Come on.
And then, of course, there is that wind chill factor, so we are looking at a feels like of -28.
This is garbage.
So you're going to want to bundle up out there. Onto our 5-day forecast. We do have a large ice storm headed our way this weekend. And
come on. Fuck you, weather girl.
You know what? Fuck you. Fuck you. Yeah, you think I don't hear the curses you're hurling my way?
Oh, I didn't.
You think I like this?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you think I want to be the bad guy? You think I asked for this?
No, I didn't realize.
Everybody, blame the weather girl. It's all the weather girl. She's the one responsible because she's just cooking up weather. I'm just cooking it up. I wanted it to be dog shit outside. That's what I wanted. I wanted you to all fucking suffer in -28. That's what I like. That's what gets me off. Oh, while you're at it, why don't you blame me for global warming?
Look.
That's my responsibility too, isn't it? You know what? Blame me for your parents' divorce. How about that one? Or the fact that you've been single for the last 2 years.
Hey.
Ooh, couldn't possibly be because you love men that treat you like garbage and you run away from every single person who shows a single sign of commitment. Oh, God, no. Must be the weather girl. Jesus Christ.
Well, look, you don't have to be so mean about it, okay?
Oh, that's fresh. Yeah, that's fresh. It's all fun and games until I'm picking on you. Look, don't cry.
I'm not crying.
Shit. Do you want the 5-day forecast or not? Because I gotta hand it over to the traffic guy in about 15 seconds.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay. You're not gonna be a little bitch about it?
No.
All right, so we got a big fuck off ice storm coming our way. It's gonna suck. If you go outside, just try not to die. Cool?
Thanks.
All right, well, that has been the weather. Larry, how are we doing for traffic this morning?
All right. So I thought that would be a nice little transition from Eric Wilhelm to head into sports. So I want to talk about the winners and the losers from this weekend. I'm going to get into all sorts of different sports, but first of all, I want to talk about the winners and losers from this weekend. So I'm going to start off. Obviously, you know, I'm wearing the Cleveland gear. I'm a Browns fan. I'm bringing in Joe Danier here with me. He's a Browns fan. Joe, we got our first winning record since 2014. Woo-hoo! I think we're winners.
Celebrate.
So, and I also saw it's the first time since 2010 that they've scored 30 points or more in consecutive games.
It's been high scoring games here. I'm loving this.
We will take it. We will take it. Especially
it's not the Rams when they had that high powered offense, but hey, it's something.
A win is a win.
That's right.
Is a win.
But you know what I love? We have a running game.
Oh, I love it.
A running game.
I know.
Woo!
It reminds me of, now I was very, very young when the Browns when you're talking about Ernest Biner and Kevin Mack. I was very young, but those names stick out so much to me because, you know, they pounded the ball, which allowed Bernie to open up and get to, you know, and that Ozzie Newsome, Webster Slaughter, Reggie Langhorne, people like that. But now people are like, the thing that drives me nuts about Twitter and Facebook and things like that is people are now complaining, oh, Odell's only getting 4 catches for 59 yards. Who cares? You won. That's my opinion. Is just if he catches 4 passes for 60 yards a game and both running backs are going for combined 200 or more yards, I'll take that all day.
And if you could take those defensive backs and march them way up the field, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. You know, and even though this is more of a Browns Cleveland type podcast, the Steelers are 3-0. Got to give them credit where credit's due. They've looked really, really impressive the first 3 weeks. So
you're a better man than me. I can't say nice things about them. Screw them.
They are a winner from the weekend. Ohio professional baseball teams. We got the Indians and the Reds both make the Major League playoffs this year. So, which by the way start today. College football fans, we have the Big Ten back. As soon as the Big Ten came back, the Pac-12 was like, well, we got to get our shit together. Right. So we're going to come back. And then MACtion. So you got schools like Akron, you got OU, Miami of Ohio, Toledo, all those, Bowling Green, all those different schools. So the MAC is back. We have the Mountain West came back. And these conferences are all starting. Honestly, I don't know the exact date, but they're starting sometime in October, late October, early November, which, hey, we'll take as much football as we can get.
Saturday, something's missing in that lineup, you know.
And something kind of cool is usually the college football season ends towards the end of November, and then there's like a 3-week gap. There will not be that 3-week gap before Christmas this year because of these delays. So that's kind of a win in my book. You know, kind of delayed the gratification, I guess you could say.
Right. And I think some teams got more rest up time until the bowl games. So I think it evens it out a little bit where they just keep playing right up to it.
And something I've been saying too is, you know, a game is sort of the reward for all the practice time you put in. You know, like for example, these shows and stuff, we put a lot of prep work into this stuff, and then the reward is going on, you know, and getting to do what you do. So for these guys who are putting in the practice and then they hear their season's canceled, but they're still practicing, it's like at that point you're probably going through the motions. But when you get that reward of, hey, you're playing on this date and you got this team to look forward to, I think that's a win.
Absolutely.
A cool story. This is a win in my book. Females in sports. As you might have heard, if you're a Browns fan or a Washington football team fan and you're watching the game this weekend, Washington has a female coach. The Browns have a female coach, and there was a female official in that game. So that's the first time in history that that's ever happened.
Nice.
So, you know, that's just going forward. I thought it was really cool. In the pregame, they showed a picture of the referee's daughter, and she had her hair tied back and stuff like that. She dressed up as her for Halloween last year.
Nice.
And she said, well, I don't have to tie my hair back anymore. I can just be myself because, you know, a man or a woman could be that. So I just thought that was kind of a cool little nod to the females in sports.
Now, what'd you think of Haskins, by the way?
Haskins, you know, and they talked about it. Chris Spielman actually did the game, and he's an Ohio guy, but he pointed it out, something I didn't notice, and something he did still at Ohio State. He stares down his receivers a lot. And at Ohio State, when you have NFL caliber wide receivers at the college level, you can do that and get away with it, you know, a lot more. But at the pro level, when everyone's faster, quicker, better,
they pick up on that.
They do. And he made some fantastic throws in that game, especially in the first quarter and then in the third quarter. But, you know, he, as a Washington fan, you're probably saying, well, Haskins cost us the game because he threw the three picks.
He'll earn into that spot. I mean, he really will learn. And I mean, it happens to every rookie quarterback.
Absolutely. And he has been, you know, he got a little bit of PT last year and got to break into it, but the more and more you play, the better you're going to get. But you just hope for him, they can put the talent around him to make him successful. A win this weekend, the city of Miami for their sports teams. So you have the Heat made the NBA Finals, which starts Wednesday. The Miami Hurricanes beat Florida State, which is a huge rivalry, and the Marlins, Florida Marlins, make the playoffs for the first time since I believe it was 2003. Nice. And they've only made the playoffs twice in their history, and both years, we know it as Indians fans. 97, they beat the Indians in the World Series, and in 2003, I want to say they beat the Yankees. But so hopefully for them, a third time's a charm.
Right.
But,
and maybe Jacksonville will go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, right.
But the thing I thought that was cool with the Miami Marlins, though, the very first week of the season, you know, which started in July, they had 18 guys come down with COVID, and they had to suspend basically playing for a full week. Shut down. They had to play a lot of double headers to make up games. And for them to just get in the playoffs, playing, you know, not some of their best players and you know, putting in a lot of minor league guys, that shows a lot as a team. I don't think they're going to go far, but I thought that was kind of a cool story.
Yeah. I got a question for you. How about that punctured lung thing that happened? I don't know if you talked about that yet.
No, we have not. Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
So that made me, you know what that made me think of? Because I didn't read into it. I think it was a team doctor that did it.
Yeah.
So it was like self-inflicted.
Right.
So that reminded me of the movie Pulp Fiction, where I think it was Uma Thurman's character sort of ODs, and he has to pump a shot of like epinephrine right into her heart, right, to get her going. And to me, that's, for whatever reason, that made me think of that. But that is a crazy story.
Yeah.
Punctured lung, right?
Yeah, right. So I think a lot of that sideline triage stuff, I mean, you can't be as careful on the sideline as you can in a room. So the stuff that they attempt to do on the sideline is crazy. And I hope that stops.
Yeah.
You know, I fear sometimes even, you know, them shooting them up with painkillers maybe creates more injury because they can't feel the damage that they're doing to their joints and stuff like that.
I'm totally sure it does. I mean, even going back to a movie I loved way back when, called Varsity Blues, they were doing that to high school kids in that movie, shooting them up with, I think, cortisone or whatever it might be. And then, you know, then the kid tears his ACL or whatever it might be because they don't feel that pain.
Right.
And they just make it worse and worse.
That's terrible for Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he's done, you know?
Yeah. I have to look into it more, but that is unfortunate.
Yes.
Unfortunate.
Sure.
And part of me feels bad for that doctor too, who did it, because, you know, he's just trying to do the best he can for his player. And it was a simple mistake, but I mean, well, not a simple mistake, a major mistake.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that plays out. And obviously in the NFL, Josh Allen and the Bills, Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, who really dominated, beat up on the Ravens last night, and then a pissed off Aaron Rodgers this year. Aaron Rodgers, all those guys and their teams are winners this weekend in my book, because they're just taking care of business. They're really dominating and they're getting after it. But a pissed off Aaron Rodgers looks very scary this year. I think they took that quarterback Jordan Love in the first round, and that really got his blood pumping. He's like, you know what? Screw you guys. You know what? I'm playing for me, not you. So. Yep.
It'll be his last year.
and just two other wins from this weekend that I wrote down. Mississippi State, and they went into LSU, the defending national championship, and with a new coach, Mike Leach, who is probably, if not my favorite coach, one of my top 4 favorite coaches in all of sports. Went in there and threw for over 600 yards on LSU and came out with a victory. Amazing. Unbelievable. And that in his first game in the SEC. And then I got to say, I had a guest picker on last week who was my mom. Against the spread, she went 12-4 last week. So
she kicked your butt.
Hopefully she should have. Hopefully she actually put some money on those games. 12-4, anybody will take 12-4. I went 9-7, and I've got a winning record overall in the season, but
she's got skill.
12-4. That's pretty unbelievable. 75%. Losers from this weekend: Mitchell Trubisky, Bears quarterback, a Cleveland guy, but was benched by the Bears. Then the Bears go on to win that game. The NFC East, the Browns play all of the NFC East teams this year, and Washington right now, who the Browns just beat, currently leads the division at 1-2. So we'll see how that goes. The Browns, I believe, play the Cowboys this weekend in Dallas. So hopefully the Browns can keep it going and we can keep the Cowboys, down a little bit.
Did you see any upsets, any surprises that happened on the NFL schedule?
There were upsets, nothing big, but there were some eye-opening things that I saw, like Atlanta losing to the Bears was one. Atlanta drops to 0-3, and for me, actually, I had on this list Dan Quinn, their head coach. I think he's the first coach sort of on the hot seat this year, where he might be the first coach to get booted. So I'm
already in the season, and we're talking coaches.
So we have I believe there's seven teams that are 3-0 right now, but I think the Bears being 3-0 is a big surprise to me, and Atlanta being 0-3 is another big surprise, because they blew that game against Cowboys. Then they let the Bears come back on them, and just not a good look for them and their coach this year.
What do you think about Mr. Burrow? They're Joe Burrow.
And in that game they tied. They finished. It was a 23-23 tie, and I believe. Doug Peterson, the Eagles coach, took some heat because he actually punted with about 15 seconds left on 4th down instead of trying a 50-plus yard field goal, because you miss that, then you give Burrow a chance to I think they would have needed 10-15 yards to get in field goal range. So Burrow has been very good, but Cincinnati, if they don't get him protected, he is going to get killed out there
for sure.
And then I have to say, even though he was last year's MVP, Lamar Jackson has to be a loser from this weekend, even though the game was last night. He has lost a lot of his big games. He's 22-1, I believe, against the rest of the league, except for the Seahawks. He's lost twice. Seahawks. The Chiefs, he's lost twice, and then obviously the game against the Browns. And he's 0-2 in the playoffs. So he has. He's a quarterback that has done amazing, but has struggled in the big games. So I'm going to say that's a loss from his point this weekend.
So if a coach carries the last name Harbaugh, do you think ill of him no matter what?
You know what? I actually really like John Harbaugh.
Right.
He's like if you were friends with the Harbaugh brothers, he'd be like the cool one that you'd want to hang out or have a beer with.
What about that other one?
And Jim's like the goofy one that's hanging around that wants to hang out, but just like, like Jim Harbaugh. I sort of liked him when he was at Stanford and a little bit with the 49ers just because of the local ties. But he's a weird dude, man. He's a weird dude.
Yep.
So I'm not on the Jim Harbaugh train, but I do respect and really think John John Harbaugh is a very good coach. Actually, they were talking about getting rid of him last year early in the season in Baltimore. I'm like, the Browns need to jump all over him. So
that would not go over well. It really would not, for a lot of different reasons.
Agreed. But again, John Harbaugh, good. Jim Harbaugh, although let's keep him up with that team so we can just keep beating on them year and year. We have about 7 minutes. I just want to talk real quick about the NBA Finals and the Major League Baseball playoffs. Two things. So the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers are now going to be the finals matchup. This is the first time ever 2 teams will match up in the finals that did not make the playoffs the previous year. Pretty cool. So we have a lot of storylines in this. We got LeBron versus Miami, his former team. LeBron versus Spoelstra, his former coach. LeBron versus Pat Riley, who Pat Riley was not a fan when LeBron left Miami to go back to Cleveland. Not a fan at all. And he let it be known in the media. Also, this is a pretty cool thing for LeBron with his legacy. LeBron is trying to win his 4th title, which would put him into absolute elite company, but with a 3rd different franchise. So, Miami, he won 2, Cleveland, obviously in 2016, and then now with the Lakers, and especially in a year when Kobe died. I just see his legacy taking a major step forward if he can win. And the Heat are, the Lakers are huge favorites over the Heat. If you are a bettor, the Lakers are minus 450 right now, currently, to win the NBA Finals. The Heat are plus 375. So in layman's terms, if you're betting, let's say you would have to bet $450 on the Lakers to win 100. Or if you want to take the underdog, if you put up $100 on the Heat plus 375, you would win 375 if the Heat did win. Odds to win the MVP: LeBron minus 110. So he's obviously the favorite. Anthony Davis plus 200, Jimmy Butler plus 800. Those are the 3 guys that are the favorites to win the MVP. Also, with that said, I want to go through a little bit of the players' roster, or both teams' rosters, and I rank the players 1 through 10. And the Lakers have the best 2 players, no doubt. LeBron 1, Anthony Davis 2, clearly. So anytime you have the best 2 players on your team, most likely you're going to win. So if the LeBron and Anthony Davis led Lakers continue to do what they do, chances are I'm taking them to win. We also have, I'm going to say at 3rd is probably Jimmy Butler, 3rd best player. But the Heat, I have the Heat as having the next 4 best players. So Jimmy Butler at 3, Bam Adebayo at 4, Tyler Hero at 5, and Gordon Dragic at 6. So pretty good starting lineup for the Miami Heat. You also have, I have ranked 7, Kyle Kuzma, and Caldwell Pope at 8, and Rajon Rondo at 9. So 7, 8, and 9 I have as Lakers. And then at 10, it gets a little dicey. You could put in Duncan Robinson. You could put in Andre Iguodala, Jay Crowder, Danny Green, a lot of those players. But so I'm going to just say through 1 through 9, the Lakers, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the Lakers have 4, and pretty much, I don't know. It's a push, I think, when it comes down to the rest of the roster, but LeBron and AD are going to stand out on that. So we will see what happens. The NBA Finals start on Wednesday night. And again, it's in the bubble, so no home court advantage. All right, and we have about 2 minutes to go, so I want to touch on the Major League Baseball playoffs, which start tonight. Shane Bieber and Garrett Cole, you're not going to get a better pitching matchup in Major League Baseball at all. So Shane Bieber, most likely the Cy Young winner, versus Garrett Cole, who dominated last season. Has not been as great this year, but still a very, very good player. You got Carrasco versus Tanaka tomorrow, Wednesday in Game 2. And then we have Zach Plesac on Thursday if necessary versus the Yankees have not named their starting pitcher yet. Sandy Alomar Jr. will manage the Indians through the playoffs. Terry Francona is still out with his health issues and what's troubling him right now. ESPN gives the Indians a 52% chance to beat the Yankees, and basically what that's telling me is it's a flip of a coin. It's going to come down to, can the Indians pitching dominate the Yankees hitting? And can the Indians get some runs? For me, the key number is 4. Can the Indians get 4 runs per game? If they can, I think they move on, beat the Yankees. If not, I think they're in trouble. So we will see what happens with that tonight. We need our ace to go out there and pitch like one, and we'll see how that turns out. Real quick plug for tomorrow, Wednesday. Tomorrow might be comparable to the NCAA tournament in March Madness, where you have a game practically every hour staggered. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I believe at 9 or 10 o'clock. So there are 8 different games tomorrow night, or tomorrow during the day and night to watch. So tune into that, and we'll be rooting on the Tribe. And Joe, we want to hit the LeBron button on there? Give it a try.
All right, which one's that?
The Cleveland one, is it bottom?
Cleveland, this is for you.
So hopefully in about a week or two we can get that going a little bit more and move on. So that's where we're going to wrap up today. We had a busy show. I want to thank Eric Wilhelm for coming on. Go Tribe tonight, and by our next show we're going to know what the heck's up with the Indians, because this is a 3-game series. Big show on Thursday as well. I'd like to plug our guest a little bit early. We have Hall of Famer, we have national champion head coach at YSU, national champion head coach at Ohio State, and now current president at Youngstown State, Jim Tressel, will join us on the show. So look forward to seeing you then. Thank you to Joe Danier, Youngstown Studios. Thanks to Coca's Pizza. Everybody have a great day. We are out.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos and the word about us. Thank you.